Welcome to the Haunted Hacker Podcast, episode number 19. This is the 19th week. We've been going full force, and today we have Dr. Oren Eytan, retired colonel of the Israeli IDF. Welcome, guys. Really excited to have you guys on. Um, this should be a really good episode. Our backgrounds are fairly similar, coming from both DoD and intelligence spaces. And we both have probably a unique look at cybersecurity and geopolitical issues that motivate those cyber attacks and defenses. So go ahead and we'll go ahead and get started. Dr. Eaton, why don't you do a little introduction and tell us about your background and what brought you into the commercial cybersecurity world. And once again, thanks for being on, and it's a pleasure to have you.
Thank you for the opportunity to be here. I'm Oren Eytan. I spent 25 years with the Israel Defense Forces. Uh, and as you said, I was a colonel. And my last position, I was the head of the cybersecurity unit of the IDF. Um, I'm myself in the academic level. I graduated my bachelor degree in electrical engineering from Tel Aviv University, and both my master and PhD, both in double E from the University of Texas at Arlington. So, and so um, I got a lot of cyber experience during my service, did a lot of things, most of them in the protective cyber and cybersecurity. And in the recent years, I'm the co-founder of Odix and the CEO of the company, which doing uh, a very interesting cybersecurity solutions.
Gotcha. That's pretty awesome. So, University of Texas. I lived there in Texas from the time I was 12 until I was 18. I actually finished school in Texas, so
Mm.
I have a fondness
Oh.
for University of Texas in Arlington and Austin. Um,
Mm.
so interesting. So, being part of the cyber defense for the IDF, uh, can you tell us about how high speed that was? Because I know doing cyber defense for USJFCom as a contractor when I got in the military was pretty intense. We had Operation Titan Rain that popped up that we had to fight against in the U.S., and then it was just a constant barrage of cyber attacks. And I'm sure Israel, same situation, especially with the Iranians and other forces around the world that want to bring harm. So tell me a little bit about how high speed it was and the difference between what you did then and what you do now.
Yeah, so as you mentioned, we are in Israel. We live kind of in a crazy neighborhood, but there's in the cybersecurity, there's also no geographical limits or borders. So, you sometimes you don't know where is the attack coming from, and it might be initiated anywhere in the globe.
Mm.
So uh, during the service, it was very intense because th- this is the real life and the real cyber warfare.
Mm.
Because the Israeli army is very well relied on technology and very high tech, weapons and all kind of communications, and everything is digitalized. And so on one hand, we are very advanced, but on the other hand, it makes us vulnerable a little bit. So the challenge is great because if you look at for example, at the regular borders. So you put trying to put a fence all over the borders. So here again, you need to cover all aspects of cybersecurity. You're trying to close all the vulnerabilities, all the gaps, all the potential holes that might be in your network, and this is challenging. And this is challenging in a way that it's a day by day, work that never ended. And but um, personally, it's very satisfactory as you look ahead and you said, okay, well, we were able to do this, and at the end of the day, you're also able to monitor and see your achievement, because you see where you were attacked, and what hackers were, and from all kinds of we're trying to do. So it's very challenging. It's very wide. It's very wide. It requires a lot of skills, because there's so many systems. Starting from IT and simple computers, going all the way to communications, going all the way to weapons of all kinds with communication links and so on. So, um, very interesting.
Yeah, I think that's part of the key piece to the future when we look at cyber defense. It's not just one set of systems, right? We have satellites and the formation of the Space Force in the U.S. with their cyber capabilities, focusing on orbiting satellites and geostationary stuff, which is really interesting to me because the threat landscape has grown so much in the past 15 years. It's almost unbelievable. I think it was a very paramount statement when, and I have to applaud Israel for it, when Hezbollah was attacking Israel with a cyber attack, and Israel said, look, that's an active war, and we're sending some welcome gifts, and bomb that entire building down to rubble. I think that's the way we have to go. The U.S. Made a statement shortly before that any attack on the critical infrastructure through cyber means would be declared an act of war. And I think that's where we're at as a society, as a global society, is that everything we do is connected. Hospitals, emergency rooms, operating rooms, governments, infrastructure, it's all tied into the internet. I
Mhm.
have a mechanical device in my chest that keeps my heart beating, and with a cyber attack, that could be null and void. So we've come to a point in civilization where we are at a precipice of a new beginning, I think, and the connectedness and the amount of time it takes to communicate with someone completely across the globe is just absolutely amazing. So tell me about Odix, and tell me about the cleansing of the files, the way that the company was started, the architecture, just everything Odix. I'm really interested to find out, because one thing that got me when I was looking at the website and sort of the services that are run, the file sanitization. I had some questions about that, as well as the CD and USB and stuff like that. Like doing a check on that. So tell me how Odix started, and just give me a rundown of services and what you guys do well, and what you guys are engineering to do better, and just really the solution set that you guys are providing for the current problem.
All right. So this can take us a few hours, so I'll try to squeeze everything.
Let's do a parachute version.
But but yeah, but well, when I started the odix, it was after I went out of the service, and I had a lot of background, and I saw all kinds of attacks and everything. And there was one very important thing that I realized that, the hackers, what they need is they need a platform to carry and to insert the malware into the network. And it doesn't matter if it's against a military or against civilian or a bank or a critical infrastructure. They're always looking for a platform to embed the malware inside. And the common platform and the straightforward platform is files. It was in the past, it's now, and I assess also that it will be in the future. And one of the things that really strengthened my thought is that all kind of files become larger and larger, and that it make it easier to hide a small piece of malware code and malicious code inside these large files. So I say this is for 100% will remain a major attack vector in the cyberspace. And then I said, okay, what do we have? We have kind of antiviruses, we have sandboxing at the time, but all of these were, let's say, responsive technologies. They're all signature-based technologies. They were very easily being bypassed, evading the sandbox today is relatively simple. And I thought of something that uh, really will make the difference, that actually will allow, look at the file in a different way and become with a different paradigm that said, okay, let's look at the file as it composed of many small components. Let's break the files to its smallest parts and then do deep analysis. Sometimes I like to call what we're doing deep file inspection and deep file analysis, because this is exactly what we do. And then once we do that and we do this analysis and we inspect everything and make sure everything is in the right place, then we reconstruct the file again and make sure that only the good portions are within this file. And one of the great advantages of this approach is that we're completely agnostic for the malware type, because I don't care what I throw away. I know what I put together, the good things, and make sure these are working. And we start looking at this, and we start the research and develop prototypes, and then I start move to the market. And that time was, I think, 4 or 5 years ago. The term CDR, content disarm reconstruction, that Gartner name wasn't there. So I had the issue, how would I call this process? And I said, okay, let's call it odix. At that time, when at the beginning, the company was ODI. And then I said, okay, the company is ODI. Let's call the process odix. And then we rebrand the company as odix. So, and we see that there was a lot of traction. And we started with um, on-prem solutions. We started with as you said, a kiosk to sanitize removable medias like USB devices and all other medias. And then uh, we also developed server-based solution for enterprises. So you are able to install our servers in the server farm of the organization and uh, route all the incoming channels to our servers in order to sanitize these incoming files. So, for example, if you download files from the internet, you route them to our server, we sanitize them. A very popular use case right now is during the COVID-19. that people work from home, and a lot of organization, they don't have any public coming in and out. So they do everything through the website. So the website become a major gateway and tool to upload files to the organization. Uh, for example, Tel Aviv municipality, Tel Aviv, I think, is one of the top 10 smartest cities in the world. So in Tel Aviv, they found out that so many files are uploaded to the website. So they took our solution. So every file that upload to the website, we first go to our server, we sanitize it, and just after we sanitize it, we let it into the organization. So you can see it as a gateway technology. We want to be before files entering into your network and
Mhm.
sanitize them. And so we developed this all on-prem solutions, and we have many customers all over the world. In the United States, a lot of utilities companies, electricity companies like Vistra Energy, Dominion Energy, Curtiss-Wright, GE, and many others. So uh, uh, what we found that the technology really is proven in the field.
Mhm.
I got a lot of thank you letters from our customers that really we help them, and we also then it's okay that I continue or
Yeah, go ahead. Absolutely.
okay. I told you it may take some
Yeah,
hours, but
absolutely.
I'm trying to to okay. But so in uh, in 2019, um, I approached to the European Commission and I told them, listen, over 90% of the business transactions and the businesses are run by small medium businesses, SMBs. Now these SMBs, they're not aware of cybersecurity. They don't have any cyber experts, not saying IT experts and so on. And moreover, I showed them that over 60% of the SMBs that experienced successful cyber attack went out of business within 6 months.
Mhm.
This is incredible. So I told them this is a real issue here. And I have a solution because I already have a proven technology for enterprises, and I can do the transformation of this technology to SMBs. And the way to do that is to do it that provide it as a service, because SMBs usually consume their IT services and cybersecurity services as a service. So I can do it as a service. So by the way, they like the idea very much, and we were awarded a grant of 2 million euro in order to develop.
Wow.
And then I look and said, okay, for SMBs and even for enterprises, what is the major attack vector? Of course, it's the email.
Right.
And then I said, okay, for the emails, the largest community of email users is the Microsoft 365. So we developed Firewall. So Firewall, I love this name, uh, Firewall for Files.
Hmm.
Firewall uh, is a native solution for Microsoft 365 to
Hmm.
protect their email. And what I'm doing is that I've transformed the technology and make it accessible, affordable for SMBs through the Microsoft 365. So this was a great move, and here we see a lot of traction from Microsoft,
Right.
from Microsoft partners. A lot of service providers want to join with us. We already have a few agreements in place with the major distributors in the world, and Firewall. will be the industry standard for file sanitation for business application. We started with the Office 365 because this is a major one, but then of course it will go for Google, Salesforce, and other applications.
Right.
So this is really, I try to squeeze everything, but
That's great. So, one of the questions I had about the firewall, um, and not specifically just the firewall, but the entire operation. How does it handle? So when I create malicious payloads, right, I try to use some kind of evasion technique, whether it be wrapping, the code, or doing something like using veil evasion, or encryption. How does it handle encrypted files or even encrypted payloads within files?
so usually we see a lot of password protected files that are in fact encrypted.
Hmm.
And for the on-prem solutions, we already utilize a solution for uh, password protected files. In
Gotcha.
this case, we we ask the user for the end user for the password. So
Hmm.
we pop up a menu for him. Okay, insert your password. Insert the password. We decrypt the file. We sanitize it, and then we encrypt it again and send it to him. The
Gotcha.
same way we are going to do also with firewall. In this stage, we now are able to recognize it, and we are able to do it, and this is definitely a very important feature,
Hmm.
and one of our great advantages that we provide a solution for password protected files.
So with that being said, that model, have you run into any roadblocks or hurdles or difficulties when it comes to requesting that type of information, whether it be like a password or a PGP key or something of that nature to decrypt a file? Are there a lot of customers that give out that information, or are there some who are very like strong in their stance about not providing passwords?
Well, I think that the customer feel that this is part of the business process. I mean,
Hmm.
in any way, they need to provide their password, and in order to open the file. So we feel that they think that this is part of the process. This is for their own security, and at the end of the day, I want to get to a point that we have in the emails that have passed through our sanitizer. We have a banner with a green V that I would like this to be, the industry standard. So everyone will look for this green V and say, okay, now I'm safe. I can open this file.
Right.
So this is very important, and I think people will look for this confidence because today they are confused. They don't know, which file to open, which file is a phishing, which file, you are not allowed. And we provide a level of confidence for the customers, so they will be able. Okay, I see the green V. I'm okay. I can open it.
Yeah, it's so that's I've looked at other platforms. I worked in oil and gas for a while as a SOC director,
Mhm.
and reviewed some of the technology that people were bringing into corporate environments as far as inspecting email or file inspection and stuff like that. And I have to say that most of the platforms that I've seen so far have been just shy of effective because of the fact that the files that those platforms are looking at are hard to identify. The hashes are hard to identify because a lot of those companies still work off of the hash algorithm, right? To compare hashes to make sure it's a genuine,
Mhm.
non manipulated file. So I think that you guys are way ahead of that. So the industry as a whole, I think, is kind of behind you guys looking at what you're doing because so far what they've done has not been effective. especially in user space here in the US. Privacy is a big deal, and I know that anytime I would ask for either a password or a PGP key to unlock a file that I found floating through our Ethernet, there's always pushback, and that's why it's a question because
Mhm.
here privacy is like unreal, but those same people who are very staunch privacy advocates go home and load games on their phones from the Play Store and get infected 24/7. So, it's the whole pick and choose where you want to be stringent and a privacy advocate. So last week, Office 365, I believe, was compromised. There was something like 20,000 emails that or 20,000 email addresses that were compromised because of the whole SolarWinds issue. And have you guys seen a huge uptick in your work and opportunities because of SolarWinds?
Yeah, definitely. We feel that, with SolarWinds, uh, the Microsoft 365 was, kind of only a platform
Hmm.
or a channel, but the SolarWinds event itself was on an on-prem product and on-prem software updates that were distributing maybe through the Office 365. So um, I think it raised a lot of questions, a lot of issues. I think it we see that people are, see that it's every time people think, well, it happens there, it's not for me, it won't happen to me, and then so on. But I think that the as more and more cases happens, and they see here with the SolarWinds attack that it was very sophisticated, I should say, and very clever, and they were able to do substantial damage. So I think this is a, a kind of, let's say, similarity to Stuxnet at that time for the ICS, for industrial control systems, and for SCADA systems and so on. But here for IT and government and other entities, this is really, I think, very compelling event. And I think, uh, first of all, cyber security experts are going to quote and they're going to give this example for many years to come. I think um, we can learn a lot from what happened there. Even though when you look at the component, each component by itself, we are aware, we know, but once it's been executed in real life and so successfully, then you need to, start thinking about it maybe a little bit differently. And I think we provide with our solution also for software updates and for any files upload and so on. We provide a very good solution for that. Um, and yeah, we feel a lot of traction in the market for our product.
Yeah, when I was reviewing the SolarWinds attack and looking at the company architecture of odix and the services you guys offer, it really seemed to me that if a lot of these companies had odix, that SolarWinds wouldn't have been an issue because it all came down to that open source update file that people downloaded and installed. Uh, I did some work with APT28 as a confidential informant back in 2016. And I can tell you that APT28 is very methodical, and they take their time and they look at functions and they look at the whole operational chain, not just the supply chain or not just the corporate entity. they look at the entire structure and flow. And I think that's why it was so effective. Now, you mentioned Stuxnet, and I had to smile because that was going to be my next question. Looking back at Stuxnet, which I thought was absolutely amazing. I've actually modeled one of my red team attacks after the Stuxnet compromise, with the USB and whatnot. So, your thoughts on Stuxnet as well as odix, odix versus Stuxnet. Do you think it would have stopped the meltdown? Um, Also, your take on Stuxnet, and do you think it's going to happen again?
Well, I think that uh, Stuxnet in this way or another will happen again because cyber is the new frontier. Is you look at in the military, not only in Israel, in the U.S. and other, the cyber become a force or a command or a frontier like you have the ground, navy and air force and cyber.
Mhm.
So it becomes a major uh, part and plays a major role in military and also in the defense and also in the civilian, because when you're talking about critical infrastructure and when you look back, uh, when the Russian invade to Georgia,
Mhm.
the first shot was a cyber attack,
Lights out.
and this was a preliminary move that they did before they moved the tanks into the city. So I mean, it become. I'm not saying, there's a lot of, doctrines of, and but cyber become a major part of it. Therefore, I think that everyone realized that you can achieve a lot of, achievements, and you can have a substantial gain by, utilizing a cyber attack or by having a first cyber uh, 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 let's say attack or hack
Hmm.
prior to a conventional
Right.
move.
Mhm.
So, and I also see it because we also feel it in Israel. They were trying to do some cyber attack on our water,
Mhm.
one of the water plant. It was unsuccessful, but they were trying. Also in the United States,
Mhm.
there was
Successful.
yeah, even though they terminated it
Mhm.
in time, but you see the attitude. You see where hackers. It can be. It's not a single hacker that
No.
wake up at 8 o'clock in the morning and say, "Okay, I'm going to poison the water in Tennessee." It's not like that. But it's the it's more, let's say, leaded by countries, by states, by a lot of very professional people that on one hand know the vulnerabilities of the other side, and on
Mhm.
the other hand know the potential damage that they can cause with this cyber attack. So definitely, I see that other attempts of Stuxnet in the future as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I think as a nation, we've been focused on taking out critical infrastructure in the time of war as a preemptive strike, for a very long time. The first thing we went after in the military was critical services, to kind of render the troops kind of useless. Um, and when you look at the clandestine services in the U.S., when you look at the CIA and NSA, and some of the tools that they use that have been accidentally leaked to the internet are pretty effective tools. So a lot of hackers don't have to look very far. The government tends to build these tools quite often, and somehow they always end up landing on the internet. Eternal Blue and Weeping Angel and things like that are really effective tools. But you're right. Some of those foreign countries, especially North Korea, China, Russia, all have nation state groups that the military, that the government bring in these really talented hackers or produce them themselves and make them kind of a digital army. And I
Mhm.
think the formation of the U.S. cyber teams was in reaction to that type of military structure, because before that, we didn't have that type of structure. We did electronic warfare, but that was about it. Now we have UAVs, unmanned destroyers that are cruising the oceans, and UAVs up in the air. So, I mean, we're getting to a point where I think the human piece of it, the human element, while it's still going to be important, I think is going to be less relied upon, strictly because it's hard for a country to gain approval for a war or for any kind of invasion when you're losing mass amounts of people during a conflict. And I think the natural progression to UAV is where we're at, which is going to open a lot of doors for cyber attacks. Um, so the next portion of the podcast that I like to do with guests is I play a little game, and I mention a word, and you give me the first thought that comes to mind when I mention that word. I actually stole this game from a friend of mine, Colin Hardy, who interviewed me for InfoSec Real for his podcast, and I
Mhm.
thought it was really really intuitive. Kind of gives some insight into the way people think. Um, so I'll throw out a couple words, and you give me a brief answer of what comes to mind when you hear that word.
Okay.
Stuxnet.
Lethal.
Very good. Let's see. Satellite IP.
Mm, well,
Yeah.
this
Um,
is
Go ahead.
a tough one.
Mhm.
Uh, let's
How
go
about
to the next one.
satellite security? Satellite security.
Satellite security.
Yeah.
Uh,
Cybersecurity on the back of a satellite.
uh, Doable.
Doable.
Well,
Probably far off in the future, but definitely doable, I think.
yeah.
Um, let's see. We'll ask one more. Make it a good one. Um, U.S. Israeli cyber teams.
Allies.
Nice. Yeah. Yeah. I think the looking at Israel has always been one of the most impressive defense organizations that I've read about, that I've studied up on. I did a lot of work with USJFCom on the East Coast, and we had Israelis that came over and trained. And
Hmm.
um, really impressive. It's just the amount of discipline that goes into some of the units in Israel is just amazing. Here we don't have the mandatory military enlistment after high school, which I think
Yeah.
is a disaster. I think that should happen. And I
Hmm.
think that as far as our presidency goes, if the president hasn't served at least 4 years in the military, I don't think they should be allowed to run for president. Because I think what our country needs is someone like Winston Churchill, or somebody that has a strong military background, that's not afraid to make tough decisions. And right now, the U.S. really lacks that, I think. Um, but hopefully, we'll get there someday. But Israel seems to be a driving force in the Middle East, and yeah, I give you guys the most respect, because you're surrounded by people who don't want you to exist, but yet you're the strongest power in that area, which is really really impressive. I want to thank you for coming on the show. It's been an absolute pleasure, and maybe we can do it again sometime really soon. I know that the time zones are very difficult, as we live completely separate sides of the world. I apologize for that. Um,
That's
but
fine.
we'll get it together. And I really appreciate if you have any questions for me, go ahead and shoot. Any questions about the community, the haunted hacker community, feel free to ask. You have any questions for me before we sign off?
No, just I would like to thank you very much for the opportunity. It was my pleasure as well to speak, the same level and profession that I like. So thank you very much.
Absolutely.
And I'm sure we'll speak in the future again.
Absolutely. And you're welcome anytime on the podcast. It's every Saturday. We have a Discord server. If you have employees that want to share free information and gain knowledge, we're here. So have a good day, and I hope I didn't keep you up too late. And
Yeah, it's fine.
we'll talk soon. Thank you,
All right.
Colonel.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, man. Bye.